Stop complaining about your neighbors. Okay, sure. Now, that story is very recent, and the told you so effect is never as sweet as this was. I have moved in an apartment with a roommate last summer. When we first came in, the biggest part of the sale was the fact that the apartment was freshly renovated and soundproof. This one is important, and you'll see why. So when we got in, my roommate immediately fell in love with it, and I was too. When we moved in, we were very careful not to bother anyone, as we wanted to quickly have a good relationship with our neighbors. Oh, did you see the new neighbors? They only moved during the day. They don't make sound during the night. What nice people, kind of deal. And we can safely say it worked. What we did not know, however, is that we were only 3 renters when we first came in. Us on the floor, another family upstairs on the opposite side, and another one on the 3rd floor, with one empty apartment between us. Turns out that soundproof statement was accurate, but only in regards to the inside to outside situation. When our upstairs neighbors moved in, it was a goddamn nightmare. Sound from 5 a.m. to past midnight, 5 days in a row, dropping stuff, speaking loudly, yelling or walking in their apartment with shoes on. Out of frustration on the 5th day, I walk upstairs and meet my neighbor. At midnight, I ask them to cease their activities for the night. I have work in the morning, and I cannot be kept up all night. I understand they were freshly moved in, and they might have had a tight schedule, but midnight was too late to be moving stuff. He didn't reply and closed the door on me. I go downstairs, and the sound starts over again. I notify my landlord, and he tells me he'll handle it, and apologized for the situation, explaining to me my neighbor was just moving and that he probably didn't understand what I was saying because of language barrier. The neighbors were extremely loud. I know a lot of Karen will use that as an excuse to shower their neighbors with hate. But when I say loud, I mean it. There was no stop to their loud noises. It seemed like they couldn't be bothered to hold something without dropping it, or jumping up and down on the floor, or purposefully banging the bed frame against the wall when having sex. I recorded the event, and even install microphones in my home jack to my computer, activating and recording every time there is strong vibration in the house. Over 98 events on Monday, February 14th. I was livid. I sent that to the landlord and explained this cannot continue. First, the apartment was poorly soundproofed, which meant we were hearing every damn sound at all time. Second, we had notified the neighbors about the situation, and they have ignored it. I have notified the landlord to awaken them to our situation. I report the issues several times, and even advise my landlord that there were very heavy-sounding thuds coming from upstairs, which worried me. He answered with, "Stop complaining about your neighbors already. I have other things to do." Quote, I have answered, "Understood, sir. Please be advised this will be my last communication and action to help you in that regard." You know when I said I had loud bangs? Turns out our upstairs neighbor was doing bench press lifting in his living room, and the heavy thuds I kept hearing was him dropping his weights on the ground. I had warned my roommate about removing anything she didn't want broken from the living room. And lo and behold, 4 days later, the first crack appeared, then another. The floor was giving up. I moved the couch out of the way, and moved the TV and consoles into the bedroom. Fast forward to 3 days ago. After another series of loud bangs, I had a loud crack, followed by a, "Oh fuck," quote, followed by very loud noises. I went to the living room to see my neighbor on the ground, with several actually gruesome injuries due to the fact he just went through the floor and brought his bench and weight rack with him. I called an ambulance and the police. The police asked me if I reported the issue with my landlord, which I could confirm. Due to my communications being made via email, I sent everything. And I am now, of course, filing to break my lease due to inhabitable dwelling. The landlord came in yesterday and just proceeded to explode. Told me I should have made him aware that my neighbor was doing dangerous things. To which I answered I had notified him about the very loud sounds and he never investigated. And that he also ordered me to stop complaining about my neighbors. It was not my responsibility to go out of my way to protect his assets if he is unwilling to cooperate with me. My neighbor's roommate and I are now residing in a hotel until we can find a new place to live. We are now also looking towards adding a bit more salt to the injury by maybe filing for criminal negligence against both our landlord and the neighbor. The first because the apartment was apparently having some flaws, and the latter for endangering us. Had I not caught up on what caused the sound earlier, God forbid, my roommate could have been under that. Anyway, it was a fun week. And I do enjoy the accommodations of my hotel. Never went to a 4-star spa included hotel before. Turns out the chocolate on the pillow is a lie and I am very disappointed about that. TLDR. My neighbor is a noisy bastard that went through the floor with his weightlifting equipment. And my landlord ignored me when I complained about the noise. The fitness club at my student accommodation consisted of equally intelligent specimens. First, they wouldn't accept that the club had to be in a basement. Then they wouldn't accept that the punching bag could only hang in one specific place, as the fastening had to be attached to the floor on the level above, so it had to be situated under the storage room and not under the office. Then, after all the debate caused by the punching bag being so heavy, we had the annual summer fete and all the clubs had booths. The fitness club set up their booth under a very young tree and hung the punching bag in a branch that was only 10 centimeters thick. Then they were all surprised when the branch broke, and even more surprised when people called them stupid. Our janitor wanted them fined for vandalism, but as it was obvious that they didn't ruin the tree on purpose, he couldn't. But yes, even in the Scandinavian countries where houses are in general built to be extremely solid, you wouldn't let someone use big weights unless the floor was on solid ground. Whoa. Just whoa. I've only ever imagined that kinda thing happening. Some kinda lawsuit is probably possible for unsafe conditions. Something was definitely wrong for the floor to give out like that. The weather girls were right, it's raining men. I've had a few bad, nosy neighbors over the years. Some worse than others. First place was a bedsit in an attic. The attic had been divided into 2 bedsits with a shared bathroom. Rules for living there. As this was someone's house, there was a strict no visitor policy. The deadbolt is locked at 10 p.m. sharp. Oh, there were no locks on the bedsit or bathroom doors to allow a cleaner to come in twice a week. One day I came home from work and caught my neighbor no only in my room. He was watching porn, pleasuring himself. I had brought a TV. He didn't have one. 2ND upstairs neighbor in his late teens. Didn't have any carpet down. He invited friends over. It sounded as if he had a roller disco going on up there. His music that loud. The elderly couple who lived below me could hear the lyrics and thought it was coming from my flat. Luckily, I was able to prove it wasn't me. Oh, did I mention that they were both hard of hearing? The way the flat was set up, there wasn't a window in either the kitchen or bathroom. I noticed water coming from the flat above that fried the extractor fan. The electrician couldn't do anything because the water was still coming through, damaging the walls. WHE walls got so wet the plasterboard was washing away. It turns out that in a drugged-up rage he ripped his bathroom sink out. Still hadn't turned the water off. And that's just part 1. Could you fill for a trespassing charge for the neighbor that fell through the floor? They did enter your residence without your consent. You can ask the hotel if they have a chocolat turn-down service, as they may have had to stop doing this due to potential allergies, lactose intolerance of guests. Most places, if you ask nicely enough, are super happy to make your day. I have my fingers super crossed they deliver for you. Smiling face. That's pretty crazy. Could you upload photos of the collapse and some of those over-the-top audio recordings in another post somewhere for people to gawk at? Due to my communications being made via email. Email is forever. Record anything like this by email communications. Often this is accepted in court as evidence, since it can easily be confirmed if needed. Landlord paying for the hotel expenses? What am I missing? 1,000 pounds of person and equipment isn't a particular large load or particularly point load. Living space is usually designed to 30 or 40 psf. I had a similar problem with a landlord not listening many years ago. I lived in the second-floor apartment. New tenants moved in directly below. The apartments had oversized living rooms. By the third day I was over the noise they created. I called the landlord several times about the noise. I told him I believed they were revving a motorcycle in the unit. He basically told me I was crazy and to stop bothering him. So I did. Come the second month, the new tenants didn't pay their rent. By the third month, with no rent being paid, the landlord started the eviction process. A couple of weeks later, the tenants skipped out in the middle of the night. To this day, I don't believe I have ever had the same level of satisfaction as I did listening to the landlord having a complete breakdown when he finally got into the apartment and saw that they had been riding motorcycles in a circular track in the living room. They completely destroyed the carpet, floor, and subfloor. They ruined the kitchen linoleum with grease, oil, and other fluids. Gee, if only he had listened to me on day 3. Lol. Maybe that's what my upstairs neighbors are doing. Or their crotch goblin is practicing parkour till 3 a.m. Awesome. While moving furniture away, I'd have set up a camera to record the event. Stop complaining. Why didn't you tell me so? That's priceless. Great MC. Opie. I can't imagine the neighbor falling through the roof into your living room. Bet crashing through the ceiling is not the only fallout your neighbor gonna witness. I'd say by far the main issue here is that the floor was so weak that it collapsed from someone dropping some weights. Reminds me of the last apartment I was ever in. I lived on the ground floor and had new neighbors move in while I was at work one day. Fast forward a week and I'm being woken up at 02:00 due to the loud music and parties. I knock on the door the next day and ask the groggy-eyed man to please keep it down during the night, early morning hours. He says sure and closes the door. The same night I get woken up to a pounding on my bedroom wall. The one I shared with his apartment. A bunch of laughs. More loud music and laughs. I'm prior military. Knowing how to fuck with people is a course we take. Game on, motherfuckers. You see, due to the loud discussions he would have, I knew he worked, and obviously partied, at night and slept during the day. So no one was there to bother him while he slept. I opened a Best Buy credit card. Bought the single most expensive surround sound system I could with the card limit. Made a 10-hour-long playlist of I'm a Barbie Girl. Faced all speakers and subs toward his wall. Took a week's worth of vacation from work and cranked the volume during the day when no one else was home. It took all of one day before he came pounding on my door threatening to call management. I laughed and closed the door. 2 days later and he came knocking this time. Asked me to stop because he hadn't slept any and it was affecting his job. We had a nice discussion about respecting others and afterward I turned off the music. For good. Some idiots only ever learn the hard way. I still have that surround sound system. Up, is this your neighbor by any chance? https www.reddit.com/r/damn-that's interesting/comments/tqs53v/the Zolia traditional dance from Centralivery/ UTM source equals share and UTM medium equals IOSAP and UTM name equals IOSSMF. But it's an art form. Is the landlord paying for your 4-star hotel temporary accommodation? Or insurance? I can't imagine you'd be so placid if you had to fork out that extra cash. Definitely file charges. There was a lot of negligence here.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TheAngryArcanist is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.